Sarvaseshu Bhuteshu Charan Vayuriva Ishvara Uchchahavachatvam Bhajate Nirgunatvat Diya Gunai Uchavaseshu Bhuteshu Charan Vayuriveshvara No Chatvam Bhajate Nirgunatvam Diyo Gunai Uva Uchavacheshu Bhuteshu Charan Vayuriveshvaraha No Chatvam Bhujate Nirgunatvam Diyo Gunai
Uchavacheshu Bhuteshu Charan Vayuriveshvara Uchavachatvam Bhajate Nirgunatvat Gunai Uchavacheshu Bhuteshu Charan Vayuriveshvara Uchavachatvam Bhajate Uchavachatvam Bhajate Uchavacheshu Bhuteshu Charan Vayuriveshvara Uchavachatvam Bhajate Nirgunatvat Gunai
Tajis. Charan Vayuriveshvara Uchavachatvam Bhajate Nirgunatvat Diyo Gunai Uchavacheshu Bhuteshu Charan Vayuriveshvara Uchavachatvam Bhajate Nirgunatvam Diyo Gunai Uchavacheshu having higher or lower bodily forms. Bhuteshu among the living entities. Charan behaving. Vayuriva exactly like the earth. Ishvara the Supreme Lord. Na not. Uchchahavachatvam the quality of higher or lower grades of life. Bhajate accepts. Nirgunatvam because of being transcendental above all material qualities. Diya generally. Gunai by the modes of material nature. Translation and purport by His Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Like the hair passing through different types of atmosphere, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing sometimes as a human being and sometimes as a lower animal, is always transcendental. Because he is above the material modes of nature, he is unaffected by higher and lower forms. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of the material nature. Maya dakshena pakriti suyate shacharacharam. Therefore, being the supreme controller of the laws of nature, the Lord cannot be under the influence. An example given in this regard is that although the wind blows through many places, the air is not affected by the qualities of these places. Although the air sometimes carries the odor of a filthy place, the air had nothing to do with such a place. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, being all good and all auspicious, is never affected by the material qualities like an ordinary living entity. Purusha Paktisto hi bhunte pakiti sangunahi. Bhagavad Gita 13:21. When the living entity is in the material nature, is affected by its qualities. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, is not affected. Disrespectfully, one who does not know this considers the Supreme Personality of Godhead an ordinary living being. Avajananti mamuda param bhavam avajananta. Such a conclusion is reached by the unintelligent because they are unaware of the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Omaganati minandasya gananjana shalakaya Shatchuru militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha Shri Chaitanya mano bhishtam shtapitam yena bhutale swayarupa kadamadam dadati swapadantikam He Krishna Karina Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gorangira Devrendavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakarpata Rubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Yeva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Translation again. Like the air passing through different types of atmosphere, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing sometimes as a human being and sometimes as a lower animal, is always transcendental. Because he is above the material modes of nature, is unaffected by higher and lower forms. So this verse is speaking by Shukadev Goswami directly to Maharaj Parikshit in a world assembly of so many sages by the riverbed of Yamuna, near the actual Delhi. And everybody is hearing with rapture attention the message of Shukadev Goswami, who is specifically pointing in this verse how the Lord can assume so many different forms, with so many different pastimes, without being affected. We may be affected by the smell of fish, and by the fish which is considered in the Vedic culture to be abominable. So, materially speaking, if we analyze that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is with a body of fish, with material computer, we may think, oh, kind of Godhead is it? But we see that the Lord is enjoying so much different form because He creates them and is um, taking pleasure in so many different ways. We have seen in the last chapters how He enjoy as being in the form of a dwarf, which is also considered as a kind of discrepancy in the human society. If you are a dwarf in the human society, you are considered a little crippled and a little aside of the normal society. But for Krishna, taking this form, there's no question of higher or lower status, because he is completely transcendental and he has nothing to see with our material concept of good and bad, low and high, and typically the duality of this material world. We are obliged to undergo and to be illusioned by the qualities of the gunas, and as a consequence also to be affected by the duality of this world, because we accepted the body, a material body, in order to think that we are the enjoyer in such a way, and it's a package. We can't escape the duality and the trigunas, because without this influence we cannot be illusion and have the impression that we enjoy through the senses the different aspects of material nature. So it is necessary for being in the game of enjoying this material body to have to be affected by some elements that plunges us in this game of in the material world. Like when you play in a video game, to enhance the effect of being completely tight with the team you are playing with, and to be affected by the things you see, you need a good screen, some hearing system, some mic that you can correspond with other players. So many items are here, and you feel part of the game. You are really engrossed in it. And actually the asuras are expert in this kind of illusion, because with advancement of technologies, they will make it even more available for the people even to wear some masks who you are completely engrossed in the illusion inside the illusion. Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada will speak of this for the drugs. He would say, you are in illusion, by drugs you are frozen, or illusion in illusion. So the games also, it's becoming something that is the feeding of the ordinary citizens, where they cannot escape, they cannot go out, they are trapped in a system, and they are fed by so many this game, that game, and they're becoming completely engrossed in a kind of system where they're becoming more and more actually impersonalists. Not only toward God and religion in general, but in between themselves. That's why the concept of family, the concept of this sex, marriage, all this is little by little being evaporated. So the concept of being person is being little by little erased by being replaced by an impersonal concept of relationship with a machine or with an artificial intelligence or a computer or something that's a mixing of these concepts. That leads the human being to be more and more like a robot, where his free will cannot be exercised because he will be more and more similar to an animal. The difference between the human being and the animal is that the human being can exercise his free will because he got some necessary intelligence. We can allow him to make some discrimination or to elevate his consciousness. The animal have not such consideration, and he, although he is not a machine, but is like more or less like a machine completely governed and driven by the three modes of material nature, without the possibility for him to analyze and to understand what he is doing, where he is going, where everything is reduced to such a minimum that it just corresponds with the interactive material nature. And the human being is supposed to also have this interaction, but to have the intelligence to discriminate and try to elevate himself. So we can see that our society, little by little, it's trying to produce robots, human beings, who have no intelligence, no power of thinking, no power of discriminating. And it's very dangerous because it's how society becomes destroyed. Because people are more and more becoming like cats and dogs, and it's easy in between these animals with a little spark or misunderstanding and to start a fight. So here, in our topic, we see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he got the body of a fish, he is completely above, and it's his way to reciprocate with Satyavrata Muni. So it is supposed that the Satyavrata Muni have been undergoing some heavy austerities, penances, in order to one day get the darshan of the Supreme Lord. So now he is reaping the result of all the austerities he practiced during several lifetimes, and he sees little by little, by this fish pastime, where the fish grows and he changes the pots, and finally is obliged to move the fish in the ocean, and then we realize that this fish is no one else than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he becomes gigantic. So it's a kind of a similar pastime with Vamanadev, where Vamanadev is so small, so insignificant, aside of the human society, almost, let's say. And then he becomes so gigantic that everyone is obliged to realize, here is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here in this pastime, we also have this kind of relationship in between Satyavrata Muni and Matsyavatar, where he starts very little and further on he becomes so great, and the Muni realize is in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all of a sudden. So here, Sukadev Goswami expresses that it may be astonishing that the Supreme Lord is like a lower animal, but his consciousness is not. He is always in his position of the Supreme Godhead, and he is always personal. Although it's a form where normally a fish is impersonal. It's difficult to have a relationship with a fish. It can be happening in some kind of dolphins and things you see on the internet or like that. They relate somehow with someone who goes on a plungeur, a deeper or some diver. It can relate to some extent to a diver, but generally we see that they are really low consciousness, very low consciousness. But for Satyavrata Muni and Matsya, there is no concept of lower or higher consciousness. That's how we see that the Supreme Lord is giving the reward to his devotee by revealing himself to the devotee. That's the main reason for the most intimate and important reason for the devotee, for the Lord to appear. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya shadushritam. He appears also for destroying the miscreant and reestablishing the religious principle. But his main concern is the devotees, those who are promoted to the spiritual world in his company in a very close future. So for these categories of people, the Lord is interested in revealing his form and revealing his power of protection. This is an important aspect of our relationship with the Lord, how we feel the protection of the Lord, because after all, we are surrounded by so many asuras who are inimical with the Supreme Lord, and see the devotee as weird people who all of a sudden have the idea of worshipping the Supreme Godhead. What is this idea? Especially the more Kali Yuga advances, the more it is like that. But the Lord is appearing for the sake of his devotees. And he is also appearing for retrieving his lost devotees. Because for him, everybody is a devotee. But some are more prone to hear him, to hear his message than others. And for this, the Lord appears. And those who are more elevated in consciousness have a kind of duty to retrieve those who can understand the message of the Supreme Godhead. So this is the essence of the Sankirtan movement, or to help the Lord in his finding pleasure to retrieve his lost servant. Because the Lord is very much pleased by someone who have been lost for so long, so many lifetimes in the material universes, and all of a sudden he turns his face toward him. He is very pleased by that. The same way a father lost his children or sons, who went away for a far distant country for years without giving them any news, making his business here and there, and then one day thinking, wow, I will come back and see my father. So imagine the father is quite pleased with this attitude. Wow, he's happy. So similarly, the Lord, after our voyage or trip in these universes, like exhaust pipes of the spiritual world. We've been, how do you say, rampant. We've been ramping, crumbling in these pipes of the refuse of the spiritual world, which is this world. And we come back to light, to the present. Yeah. Yeah. It smells bad. It smells bad in the refuse system. I'm enough of it. And then when you regain your senses, this gives some appreciation of the Lord appreciates such a change of consciousness, and that gives pleasure to the Lord. So those who are participating in this process of reviving the consciousness of his lost servant are greatly appreciated and recognized by the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada explained more in details how the Supreme Lord is unaffected by the three gunas and by the qualities, the events, what is happening in the material world. Because it's easy to understand, because he is behind, and not, it is said that not a single piece of grass moves without the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead behind. It is hidden, but it is allowed to move just because he wants it. So we are obliged to be affected, but the Supreme Lord is not, because he is the creator. Like a cook or a baker is not attracted by the cakes he manufactures or the bread he is doing every day as a duty. He become in a way vaccinated. We speak a lot of vaccines. But the baker is not tempted by his cakes and his what he manufactures. The same way the Supreme Lord is producing and destroying so many animals, men, women, devatas of all kinds. The material elements, Buddha Paliyate, are being created, maintained, and reduced into complete annihilation. So this moving, this transformation of the material nature is not affecting the Supreme Godhead because he is behind. That's how he arranged, how he designed the material world in such a way. So as being the Supreme originally designer, he is not entangled and is not affected. He's aware of what's going on. He sees everything. He understands everything. But he's not part of it. So this way we can make it understand to the people who sometimes throw stone at the Supreme Godhead because the world is going so bad. So they don't understand why God is not reacting. So many bad things are coming. So in a way, they project their material consciousness on the Supreme Godhead, or he computes, or he organizes things, and they don't understand or is aloof by the process of creation and destruction. They can't understand. The same way they can't understand how the soul is also aloof from the different manipulation of the material world, because the soul is also transcendental by nature. But due to some misconception, the soul is being entrapped in a body, and the body creates situations that gives way to a new body, a new prison for the soul, because the soul is averse to serving the Supreme Godhead. This is the problem. The fun of the problem is like that. Because of our aversion, we create situation where we become more entangled, and we create, and we continue our sojourn in the prison house. So all the sages are here, hearing what the pastime described by Shukadev Goswami, which is a kind of resume, or something, a nutshell of a story that happened so long time ago, and with so much more details. And the story is here depicted in a chapter, that it's more elaborated in some other Purana. It exists, the Matsya Purana. I didn't read it, but I suppose probably they speak more in details about these pastimes. So there may be some comments or some question about this verse that I will read again. Uchavacheshu bhutteshu charan vayorishveshvaraha nochava chatvam bhajate nirgunadvam diyogunahai. Like the air passing through different types of atmosphere, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing sometimes as a human being and sometimes as a lower animal, is never transcendental, is always transcendental, because is above the material modes of nature, is unaffected by higher and lower forms.
Prabhupada says this modern society is a soul-killing society. Talk about that. Actually, many scientists and other people, they would like to kill consciousness. They would like to get rid of it. It's a problem.
Yeah. They will put the dust under the carpet. They will avoid the real root of the problem in our society.
How can you miss it? How can you not see it? It's the main thing. It's you.
Yeah.
How can you miss it?
Because they don't want, basically because they don't want to see. That's the main reason. They don't want to see, but they will be obliged to see it in another way with a stick after some time. That can read it. Antarat Shrimad Bhagavatam ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna.